Hey everybody, welcome to my creative writing channel, Critical Storytelling, where I use critical analysis to help you tell your story. My name is Ella, and I'd like to get started today by returning to William Wordsworth's She Was a Phantom of Delight. And I want to reread it this time looking at a new literary device called the persona. It's Latin for sound through, because back in the day when they were on stage, the actors had different masks for each character, and they would project their voice through this aperture on the mask that kind of acted like a megaphone. So today we use the word person to describe who we are as a human being, but it comes from this understanding that we kind of shape that in a way to become like what we aspire to be, how we see ourselves, how we want others to see us, most importantly. I think has a lot to do with most people's motivations anyway. So we're going to look at persona. It's a literary device that the poet or the storyteller can use to get their point of view across. And they can do this through the tone of the language, the word choice of the language. It can also take the form of it can also take place in the form and structure. So we're going to look at She Was a Phantom of Delight again. Wordsworth. She was a phantom of delight when first she gleamed upon my sight, a lovely apparition sent to be a moment's ornament. Her eyes as stars of twilight fair, like twilights too her dusky hair, but all things else about her drawn from Maytime and the cheerful dawn, a dancing shape, an image gay, to haunt, to startle, and waylay. I saw her upon nearer view, a spirit, yet a woman too, her household motions light and free, and steps of virgin liberty, a countenance in which did meet sweet records, promises as sweet, a creature not too bright or good for human nature's daily food, for transient sorrows, simple wiles, praise, blame, love, kisses, tears, and smiles. And now I see with eye serene the very pulse of the machine, a being breathing thoughtful breath, a traveler between life and death, the reason firm, the temperate will, endurance, foresight, strength, and skill, a perfect woman nobly planned, to warn, to comfort, and command, and yet a spirit still and bright with something of angelic light. So, whereas the last time I read this poem, I was looking at the woman. I mean, that's like everything that the poem is about, but you get a totally different takeaway when you look at the poem through the eyes of the persona, and you ask yourself, what kind of man would write this poem? So there's a little bit of an equivalency here, I believe, when we look at the man who wrote it, Wordsworth, and the actual persona of the poem, presumably her husband, and we say, well, okay, what kind of man takes that kind of outlook about his wife? And so one of the themes of romantic literature is the innocence of childhood. And I would argue that for a man to go through his entire life and still maintain the innocence and purity of heart, to be able to capture this kind of perspective about a common housewife, that he has something good in his heart that is timeless. And of course, we have the poem to prove that that is the case. So, some of the themes also, so that goes to wonder and amazement that at this time in his adult life writing this poem, he's not so jaded by the mundane life of like his, he says, and now with eye serene, so he's older now. So when first she gleamed upon his sight, he took her for granted, that she was just an ornament. But as the years go by, she continues to keep that sweet nature about herself, not too good, not too bright or good for human nature's daily food. So that's daily life, the ins and the outs. You know, she has her faults, but on a daily basis, he's able to appreciate her spirituality, her magical nature, despite just the everyday inconveniences, maybe, I mean, tears and smiles. So in his later years, and now I see with eye serene, the very pulse of the machine, that there is something he can appreciate. So we have wonder and amazement, and at the very end, he exhibits protection over, and that's an important aspect of romantic literature, the theme of, you know, the innocence of childhood, because not everyone survived to be an adult. And so there was a lot of pain regarding the loss and the grief of people who, you know, maybe didn't do anything wrong. They just, you know, common illness could take someone from them. So a perfect woman, nobly planned, to warn, to comfort, and command. He's taking responsibility for her well-being. And so, I mean, she's lucky to have him, because he provides the safety for her to have a place to beautify. But also, that can only take place in the context of him living in a society that at the time, each man assumed responsibility for their own household. And that is in the context of a larger parish or country or world where people adhere to certain customs. And it makes her very fortunate in that regard, that she has this lightness of spirit, because there are rules, and one of them is for him to look out for her. So the last theme that I wanted to look at, so just to review, I looked at wonder and amazement, that he was able to maintain that outlook for her. It's the reason that we have the poem. The protection and provision, he takes responsibility, he provides authority, he maintains governing the rules of the household so that they do not become susceptible to vulnerabilities. That, because as a woman in that society, her opinion really holds no weight. And so, thirdly, I want to point out the devotion that he has to her by writing the poem. We have the elements of romantic poetry that we can look back at, and it provides us the memory of her existence. You know, that this beautiful creature was once here, and that he was capable of the level of pride that he had to have to not only take this opinion of her, to maintain this sense of wonder about her, but to write it down in such a way that we still have this beautiful piece of art to share with everyone. And so I just wanted to take another look at it, so that we could say, you know, it's not always about the woman when we look at romantic poetry and what is beautiful, but also to appreciate the perspective of men who make this possible. And I hope that you will take what I've said about the persona and maybe find a way to incorporate it in your storytelling process, whether that's through oral tradition, a poem, or a short story that you're working on. I hope that you will find the opportunity to put pen to paper and find a way to make meaning of life. And I hope this helps. Thank you for listening.